I should know never to follow anything that Donna does. But I've not learned the lesson in 50 years. So, yes, Donna put that used to be a liturgical dance. Did liturgical dance, and she would create dances like that one that she just did. And I thought, I hope you caught all the. Well, if you didn't catch all the words in the piece, you can see it in the bulletin written down there. It's interesting that when I was reading commentaries about today's gospel, it says that one commentator writes about preparation. It says, in thinking about the performance of the sermon and its place in the larger context of the litany, it will be well to keep in mind the physicality of the story. Zacchaeus runs ahead, climbs a tree, and stands in front of Jesus. And so it says in its performance element, we ought to embody that energy. And I think that's what we just did in that wonderful rendition of the gospel. On Monday night, we saw that incredible film, At the Crossroads, that Brian had put together for our 150th. It was an amazing, bold movie, I thought. I think no churches are very rare that actually are willing to place their vulnerability, their questions, and so on in such a public manifestation. But we did that. Not only looking at the past and the ups and downs of this church coming into being over 150 years and its high points, but we also looked at the struggles. And some of those struggles were very close to our current times. And that's, I think, what made the whole issue, the whole venture, bold and courageous and a gift. Because we all embrace our own moments like did the prophet Habakkuk. Whether it's wildfires and COVID or illness and accidents and uncertainty and questioning. We ask, at times we find ourselves saying, how long, Lord? I think that's the gift of the Psalms, that it's not just about praising God, it's about also being able to offer to God our lamentations, our times of saying, well, how long, Lord? Have you forgotten? Have you forgotten the promises to your people? As they face the sort of erosion of their entire identity as a people, being dragged into exile under Assyria and under Babylon. What of your promises to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? What of your promises to Moses? Why did we follow you in the wilderness? What about the prophets and all their affirmations? We all have these moments. I mean, they were there in the very burnt into the history of the people of God, but we have them too. Sometimes we can be forgiven for taking and finding a piece of scripture that just speaks to us directly. But this one of Habakkuk does that for me. It's not about the violence. It's not about the injustice. It's not about that caught my attention, but it was about a waiting period in my life. I, as you know, have spent some of my time after college and after university in Romania, but to get there, I had to apply for a scholarship for the British Council, equivalent to a Fulbright. Somehow that application, even having been accepted and going to orientation with other scholars that were going to head with me, we were all going to get there in September. It was from September to June was the scholarship. Somehow September came by and all of my colleagues, they left and they went to Romania, but I was left home. My application had not yet been fully approved by the Romanians. And September became October, October became November, November, December. And in January, I'm sitting in a friend's house, in a friend's office, who were street evangelists, actually. And they'd given me Thursday night for their office, and I would spend Thursday night like praying for Romania and praying for this opportunity. And I was wandering, sort of pottering around, and I came across the Bible that one of my friends. And on the flyleaf of the Bible, these very words from Habakkuk were written. Wait for it. The vision is for an appointed time. These were the words that struck me. The vision is for an appointed time. Wait for it. And when it comes, it will be so clear, it will be posted like a runner could read it. Well, I was a runner. And I sort of immediately took that as a further promise of God that just wait. Well, by March came along, and I decided I better start thinking about something else in my career. Look into teaching college or something, you know. And I even got a new job and went off to work at a Christian camp up in the north of England. And barely had I arrived there, then a letter came to say, you can come now. And on April Fool's Day, I landed in Bucharest. And they allowed me 10 months, so I went from April to February. Everybody else went home in June. In July, one of my friends, a colleague from Oxford, who was a leading light among Christians in Romania, wrote an extremely dangerous expose of the government's use and manipulation of religion. And I helped him translate it. And then, and that wouldn't have happened if I had gone from September to June, because we did that from like July to September. Then in August, a young woman from America arrived, my wife. I would have missed her altogether had I not done. God said it was an appointed time. An appointed time. See, we all live. I know we all have moments when we're into that how long, Lord, and we want to see it, but God does have an appointed time. We live with a God who is faithful. We live with a God whose timing is, as we allow it to roll out, we see as perfection, even though the answers that God often gives to us are rarely predictable. Often we don't see it coming. But when it does, it's right. We always live at the crossroads. We always live at the crossroads. We are people of faith. Faith in the assurance of things hoped of things not seen, the certainty of things hoped for. That's what Zacchaeus' position. I'm sure of it. It's a rich story. Amy told us about tax collectors last week, and they were despised. They were collaborators with the Roman occupation, and they were cheats. And it's ironic that in the story that Luke tells, Zacchaeus was small. Because what did he do in his cheating? He deprived people, he made them smaller in their resourcefulness. And in his power to be able to represent Rome, he made them small in their sense of agency and of capacity. So maybe even in the fact that he was called small was one of Luke's comments about tax collectors. But in spiritual, moral terms, that's what he was. His physicality surely just represented, mirrored who he was. And I think Zacchaeus knew it. He knew he was small, but I think he knew that he was diminished as a human being. And I like to think that he was questioning himself, questioning his own values, his own behavior, his own desire, and had a desire for a better self. How long becomes a different story in that environment? How long do we accept my deficiency? How long will I let this just be a world in which I'm living and treading and not fulfilling the desires of my real heart? How long do I deny my longings and my desires for a better self? I think that was all going on in Zacchaeus. And like him, we might have those things too. And when might we realize that there's one who loves us just as we are, but then again wants more for us? And how long do we venture to allow to let that sense of who Jesus is and who Jesus can make us to be? How long does it take for that to out-energize every other sense of who we are, of who we see ourselves to be? How long, Lord? Maybe for Zacchaeus, it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to sort of suddenly, when would Jesus himself be coming down his street? He doesn't know him, we're told in the gospel, but he's curious, and so that's why he wants to see him. Maybe there was something in him that made him think that this, just to see Jesus would be enough. He could have let his panic about this opportunity that was coming by paralyze himself, but he didn't. He could have let his reputation and the contempt of the crowd stand in his way. Who am I to expect Jesus? Who am I to go public? But he didn't. He didn't let the fear of the crowd or their despising or their contempt get in his way. He didn't let his own physical limitation get in his way. And so he ran ahead to find his perch, and there he climbed that tree and sat on that perch and looked and waited. How long, Lord? How long? Not long now. Because Jesus is coming down your street. Have you ever taken yourself that seriously? Have you ever taken yourself that seriously? Last night, there was a moment in the World Series when the television went off. The shriek was phenomenal. And I thought about this line in my sermon. How long is it since your shriek of that kind of event occurred in your life that you just shrieked after God? No! Don't pass me by. Don't pass me by. That look of knowing, that look of loving, that look of being accepted that Jesus bears. That is what we need. But even there, I think, as if Zacchaeus, that desire took him to that moment, even there he underestimated Jesus, because guess what? Jesus already had seen him. Whether it was before Zacchaeus saw Jesus or Jesus saw Zacchaeus, we don't know. But Jesus not only was walking by, but he noticed Zacchaeus and he said, "Come on down. Come on down." And that's the truth about us too. We spend all our time wondering, trying to hide, or wondering what can we do. Jesus already, we turn to him, we find he's already there. I think sometimes Jesus himself says, how long must I wait for you to get yourself down that tree? Or maybe up that tree and then down that tree. You know, today is day one. Symbolically, since we said last night was 150th, today is day one of our next phase of celebration. Yeah, we're in ordinary time. I had a choice to do All Saints again, or All Saints number 2, but we're in ordinary time again because it's ordinary time walking as disciples. And the gospel invites us to admit and to let our deeper wishes for ourselves and who we might be in God's eyes seize us in a passionate way. The word I take from this congregation for my own life, when I think about how so many of you are, is the word yearning. There's a yearning among so many of you for whatever more God can do, whatever more understanding of God can do in terms of the transforming of our own lives and then the transforming of those around us. The invitation of Zacchaeus is to clear every obstacle, leaping over it, to see love incarnate fully on in front of us, to run ahead of our circumstances, try and beat it out of the past. To find as we do so that God has seen us first and in fact wants to visit us where we live. Jesus wants to visit us where we live. Well, let me clean up first. But he just wants to enjoy our first finest winery, and even if we've only got water to offer him, we know what he does with water. He'll turn that into wine. This is the gospel we embrace on this first day of our new life. It's the gospel we embrace that then embraces us. It's the gospel we're invited to live. It's the gospel that we embody at the crossroads. Now, having told me that, would you preach on Hangover Sunday? Amy added, oh, by the way, we're kicking off stewardship today. Well, thank God for Zacchaeus. Because what did he do? What were his natural inclinations after receiving the forgiving, freeing love of God in Jesus? However much he cheated people, he gave them back fourfold. And half of his possessions he gave to the poor. We give in proportion to that love that we receive, and then we give a bit more. That's what Zacchaeus found, and it's his gift to us on this beginning of this stewardship campaign. Your generosity, the one we saw on the screen yesterday afternoon, your generosity is in proportion to your knowing of grace. Not just grace the building and grace the people, but grace within your own hearts. I once was lost, but now I'm found. I was blind, but now I see. I don't know your needs and your longings, but do own them. Be serious with them, and let them energize your desire to see the one who comes down your street, whose name is Jesus. To see him and to feel beloved. To see him is to know that you're forgiven. To see him is to be free. To see him is to stand with him at the crossroads. So I invite you to turn to your bulletin right now. And for us to read together, we'll stand at this point and read together the Iona prayer. O God, we'll say together, O Christ, you are within each of us. It is not just the interior of these walls. It is our inner being you have renewed. We are your temple, not made with hands. We are your body. If every wall should crumble and every church decay, we are your habitation. Nearer are you than breathing, closer than hands and feet. Ours are the eyes with which you, in the mystery, look out with compassion on the world. Take us outside, O Christ, outside holiness, out to where the soldiers curse and the nations clash, at the crossroads of the world. And so shall our buildings continue to be justified. Amen.